Number 2. Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake.
Daddy, no!
Deja vu much, huh? Lower on my list, I have Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, the original games for the PlayStation. They're some of my favorite PlayStation games, and as a Resident Evil fan, I've played them dozens of times. But I cannot deny the brilliance of the remakes of 2 and 3. Let me put it this way. Ever since Resident Evil 2 came out, I've been searching out other games that attempt to recreate the environments that we found ourselves in that game. I picked up Darkside Chronicles because I wanted to see higher res graphics from the Resident Evil 2 police station. I picked up Operation Raccoon City because it took place during the fall of Raccoon City. Hell, I picked up Umbrella Corps because they had maps from Resident Evil 2 in it. I love this period of Resident Evil's history. And when they announced the remake of 2 a few years ago, I got really excited, for I loved the remake of the first game. And when the remake of Resident Evil 2 was revealed, along with the over-the-shoulder movement from Resident Evil 4, I was there. I was ready. And the day it came out, I spent all night playing that game and I finished it in one sitting. It is absolutely everything I wanted it to be. It had better graphics, a better gameplay style, better acting, and most importantly, better atmosphere. I personally prefer the over-the-shoulder camera angles to the tank controls. Now, don't get me wrong, I grew up with tank controls. I have no problem with them, but I just prefer that other control scheme better. And the thing about the original Resident Evil 2 is that it had a companion piece. Resident Evil 3 released over a year later. Resident Evil 3 felt like DLC for the original Resident Evil 2. It was very similar in some ways, but very different in others, pacing being the biggest difference, I think. The original Resident Evil 3 was almost like an action movie, just going from set piece to set piece, having a giant monster follow you the entire time. And when the remake of Resident Evil 3 was released a little over a year after the remake of Resident Evil 2, I felt the same. The Resident Evil 3 remake is faster paced, it feels like an action movie, and the pacing is great. It felt like the perfect companion piece to Resident Evil 2. Sure, a few locations from the original were cut out, but they also expanded on some locations, like the hospital for example. And while you don't get to see Nemesis as much as I'd like, when you do see him, he's terrifying. The real reason I'm bunching Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3's remakes together is because Resident Evil 3 in a lot of ways feels like the perfect DLC for Resident Evil 2. Now, it certainly wasn't priced that way, but in my mind, that's how I look at them. I look at it as one complete experience. I know it seems a little ridiculous having a 2019 and a 2020 game in my top 5, let alone at number 2. But these games are exactly what I love to play. And as a huge Resident Evil fan, of course it was going to make it this high on my list. It's over-the-shoulder Resident Evil action and horror brought together. It has the nostalgia from the original Resident Evil 2 and 3, and refined and developed with love in a brand new package. They're 2 of my favorite Resident Evil games of all time, but perhaps not my favorite. I haven't been one for keeping much mystery during this list, so if you've been paying attention, you probably know what my next game is. But that's for next time, and until then, I just have to say, Resident Evil is on a great trajectory and I can't wait to see what the future holds.